calling for the resignation or the firing, I suppose, of Steve Ballmer, which it's funny because it basically tells you people aren't too happy. And I've been seeing lots of articles recently shared them about shareholders suggesting the company's not doing well. In fact, if you look at the stock, they did pretty poorly since the beginning of the year. But I'm not extremely interested in seeing Steve Ballmer stepping down, except for the fact that it would indicate that things are rotten from the inside to the extent that all the managers are leaving. And by the way, more of them have left, but I don't think we have reason to talk about this because it's just names of people. You know, this person stepped down, this person stepped down. The only people left in the company, as I put it, I don't really know how to pronounce his last name. But it's the guy who's was promoted to senior vice president. He's the person who's doing the patent extortion for the company, so he's been promoted to one of the highest positions now because Microsoft is becoming a patent extortion company. There is Ballmer staying, and there is Mundy, who's mostly lobbying and going to like Bilderberg meetings and stuff like that for Microsoft. So, and everybody else pretty much left. You know, I cannot think of any major name and people who used to be veterans with the Windows teams who stayed in the company. So, Ballmer stays in there, and he really knows how to alienate people from the Apple world and Linux and stuff. So I'm quite interested in him staying for now, because I think if he left, there would be a sort of a new face to the company, and it would be easier for them to say, look, there is the new Microsoft, and there is the new leader, and I don't think it would be too useful if they did that.
Well, one of the topics that I hope we can round off on, because over in the UK, I don't know what time people will listen to this show, but over in the UK at the moment, it's 12 minutes past 11 in the evening. So we're going to sort of come to a conclusion very shortly and hopefully do another show over the weekend when Rusty will be coming and joining us. So what I thought for the final topic was that we'll have a look, go back to Skype and re-examine a couple of the issues there, because Skype's been in the news recently with a major flaw over the last few days. I believe that some users couldn't log on, and there was an update announced apparently for Windows and Mac users, and much to the amusement of many Linux users, there was no Linux update. Roy, as I've said that piece, you get the first chance to say what you think.
Yeah, right. I personally don't log into Skype anymore. I'm unavailable on C basically 24 hours a day. But I read about the outage, and it just reminded me of 2007 when Windows Update kicked in and booted many of the machines at the same time, and basically Skype crashed, and I think it wasn't working for at least a day, maybe 3 days. The whole system was down. People could make phone calls, and all this caused because not because of all the platforms or the clients. It's just because of the Windows element in their system and the dependency on Windows serving as a botnet, basically. Because Skype, the way it works, and the reason it might work well for quite a few people is because it takes over the network, and it does all kinds of things. If you know network engineering, I suppose it makes more sense, and to me it never quite made sense. But they use people as nodes to hop between different attendants of a conversation. So they basically hijack people's machine to use them as super nodes and to use them as a route to another machine. And if all of these nodes fall down at the same time to reboot, then you don't really have any nodes to go through. So the whole assumption that you'll always have some people logged in and being exploited as a routing point basically collapses and breaks. So Skype couldn't even start because people did not have enough nodes to kind of get the botnet going. And once it goes down, this is the type of thing that happens. And it's interesting because there is this joke going around, and especially in the IRC channel I'm running with some people, that the biggest two botnets are Skype and Windows Update. Because when they go off, they manage a lot of traffic, and they take advantage of people's computers, and they take a lot of control of the network at the same time when they decide to do so. And this is the joining of Microsoft and Skype is already quite an interesting affair, because Microsoft is now one of the biggest sort of botnet herder, I suppose you could call them. not just the criminals who are exploiting holes in Windows and just grabbing computers by the millions and kind of using them to send spam or whatever. So that's what I had to say. So if the system crashed, as you mentioned, and you say that there was a flaw in Skype, or
Well, what it was, from my brief, because I've been very busy over the last few days, so of course this all occurred when I wasn't actually online. There's some issue with the shared.xml file. I'm just reading down here from a BBC News article, which probably isn't the best place to refer to. What I'm trying to look for, there was a comment made in respect of the updates. There was advice given for Linux users, and I don't know, I presume you haven't read this, Roy, but it was along the lines of, well, Linux users are advanced so that they can it was something along the lines of the update or the fix for the Linux users is not as simple, but Linux users can deal with it because they're more advanced users or something like that. It was words to that effect, and I'm desperately trying to find this because it would be excellent for the show notes, because it was a very sort of double-edged compliment, for want of a better word, because not only were they able to
there is an element of truth in that, though.
Yes,
the implication, I'll tell you, there is the implication of
the implication
that you could not use Linux if you weren't advanced,
yes.
but there is the fact that a lot of advanced users are using Linux. Now, from this, you can actually take it as a compliment, and people who know their way, and people who actually know their choices and know how to choose, actually choose Linux. People who don't know anything about computers will just choose something else.
And the vast majority of people who use Skype will see that and see advanced users in the word Linux and make a mental reference for future reference. So I didn't like that comment at all, but I can't find it to hand to quote it exactly, which is a shame. Anyway, it seems to be all solved now, and everything's back up and running. But just a few questions on the Skype issue. Obviously, my take on the whole Skype situation using SIP client would be that I would accommodate whatever guest we had on and their preferred method of communication.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, and I think that it's certainly, I think at the present time, until the service of Skype changes considerably into something completely different, I would certainly have no hesitation using Skype, just because it's a Microsoft product now that they've acquired. For me personally, it doesn't actually change anything at all. I still do what we've always done for the show, and if our guest only wants to use Skype, then fine, we'll accommodate that because they're good enough to come on the show, and obviously we want to make it as easy for them as possible. But what's just a very brief question and sort of feedback, Roy? What's your opinion of the Skype product since Microsoft has acquired it?
I don't think they've acquired it so far. I don't think they've signed the papers.
No, well, yeah, it's all that's in the signing.
One of the things you know, though, is we haven't covered this yet. The asterisk situation. Just shortly after they agreed to be acquired, but it's a done deal, I suppose, formally yet. Maybe it is, but what happened was, on a prospective basis, one of the open source products and one of the bridges for Skype to work with other networks and to interoperate is breaking down. So a announcement came from I believe the developers of the bridge between Asterisk have a very popular VoIP-based solution, and also a bridge is supposed to SIP in some way, to SIP. That's been broken down, and you can be sure it has something to do with the Microsoft acquisition, and I believe Skype is trying to distance Microsoft from it and say, oh, it's nothing to do with Microsoft, but it's really hard to believe that just incidentally, because it just happens to be at the same time, especially after they actually built a relationship with an open source provider. So it seems very clear that Microsoft has different plans for Skype and isn't too interested in other people getting access to the platform or actually accommodating something that's based on standards, which is a shame. And it comes at a time when the European Commission looks at Microsoft's exclusion of competing vendors, exclusion and avoidance of standards, deviations from standards, shutting down competitors, and they should really look carefully at what happened here, because this is Microsoft possibly impacting people's communication. Not servers communication, but actually communication among peers, among families, and trying to press them to buy Windows to just interoperate as individuals, as people. And then that kind of disturbed me a bit. But and also one of the open source, among the exodus at Microsoft, one of the main, or kind of one of the groomed up developers at Microsoft was like a so-called open source developer. I can imagine he was using some framework to do with Microsoft. He's leaving the company, and he's basically given a very damning admission that the company is a really bad place for not nurturing or fostering open source development, which is a good thing to hear, because that just confirms the company is just basically playing PR and it isn't really too serious about changing its ways and its core business model.
Well, considering the time and the lateness of the evening, hopefully, like I say, we'll have Rusty tomorrow. Now, I believe, Roy, you have the ending track to see us out, but before that I'll just do my normal roundup, and that's thank you everybody for listening to the show. It's greatly appreciated. Your feedback is greatly appreciated, including your insults. I do enjoy reading those. Bytes Media at bytesmedia.co.uk if you want to send an email, or on mine or Roy's respective sites. Hopefully we'll have another show in the next couple of days when Rusty, our friend from America, is going to be on and giving his unique views into the subjects we're covering here. And if you have any suggestions for the show, please by all means write or email or tweet us, and we'll try to accommodate them as best we can. So Roy, I'll put it over to you, and till next time everybody, thank you very much for downloading. I'll speak to you later.
Yes, the track is called 1977.
1970, 1970, 1970. 1970. Nací un día de junio del año 77, planeta Mercurio y el año de la serpiente. Signo patente tatuado y en mi frente que en el vientre de mi madre marcaba el paso siguiente. Nacer, llorar sin anestesia en la camilla. Mi padre solo dijo eso, Ana María. Sí, sería el primer llanto que me probaría, que mandó las heridas y dándome la batería. Solía ser entonces como un libro abierto, pero leí la letra pequeña del texto, como un arquitecto construyendo cada efecto. Correcto, incorrecto, se aprende todo al respecto. Saber que algunas personas quieren el daño, subir peldaño toma tiempo, toma año. Con mi peluche mirando lo cotidiano, dibujos transformaban el invierno en gran verano. Papá me regaló bajo mi insistencia un juego que trataba de compartir la solvencia, pero en el patio hicieron la competencia. Fue cuando sentí mi primera impotencia. 1970 y 1970 y 1970 1977. No me diga no, no lo presiento. Todo lo que cambia lo hará diferente en el año que nació la sepia. 1977. No me diga no, que no lo presiento. Todo lo que cambia lo hará diferente en el año que nació la sepia. Mi adolescencia fue una etapa bizarra. El cuerpo es batería y la cabeza guitarra. La orquesta narra una tonada quebrada para la mirada de una niña que solo talla espada. Hormona disparada, sobrepobladas de información que cambian temporadas. Caminas encrucijada, cada cual en su morada preparaba la carnada. La sagrada diablada de mirada encabronada. Mi fila la verdad nunca buscó su silla. Mi búsqueda fue mero proceso de pura pila. Pupila de poeta que marcó nuestra saliva. En la cordillera que miraba la salida. La parada militar de paso monótono. Colores policromos, los uniformes de poco tono. De tono mi cuestionamiento, la voz y sonó, no. Mi primera rima que sonó y me enroló. Mi búsqueda no fue para mi cosa de escenario, fue algo necesario y que marcaba ya mi fallo. Así que tú hablas más de lo necesario. Fue cuando entendí que todos quieren ser corsario. 1970 y 1970 y 1970 1977. No me diga no, no lo presiento. Todo lo que cambia lo hará diferente en el año que nació la sepia.